And the fact that he could rob a priest in a church with God watching. Hey y'all, welcome and/or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today's video is another true crime episode. So if you're ready, let's go. All right, y'all. So my nails ain't done. These, BTR box come in clutch every single time. Y'all, I think they have crippled me because I don't be wanting to do like my creative nail thing no more. I really just be like, I could just slap on these BTR box and call it a day. But I'm gonna get back to it. I know I haven't done a nail cam in the past couple of videos, but that's only because I really haven't done my nails. Anyway, I feel like the next set that y'all see from me is gonna be from me. Okay, I'm gonna try to make that happen. Real quick before we start today's case, have y'all watched The Perfect Neighbor on Netflix? Because if you have not, I highly recommend that you go watch it. And the thing about it is, I wasn't gonna watch it myself because I've heard that case multiple times. I've seen Susan's interviews multiple different times. Susan, is her name Susan? I don't know. Anyway, I've seen the lady's police interviews so many times. I've heard the case so many times and all of the details, etc., etc. But I'm glad I watched the documentary because it really took you into exactly what happened. Step by step, the calls, the attitudes, just the whole dynamic of it. And me being a person who does true crime and who researches cases all the time, I feel like I kind of somewhat am desensitized to the stuff that I read, but to see the stuff play out and to see the emotions of the people in that moment and to see just everything happening in real time versus reading it or hearing their accounts from it afterwards, it really all just brought everything back down to earth, for me at least. And I'm really glad that I ended up watching it. So if you have not seen it, I strongly urge you to watch it. But yeah, other than that, y'all, let's just go ahead and hop into today's case. And if you've been with me for a little minute now, then you already know that we're going from the little prairies to the 40 acres of America in alphabetical order. So from Alabama to Wyoming, and today we are in Tennessee. So it's October 10th, 1977, and a young lady named Tara Wedlaw has just moved to Nashville, Tennessee from Tampa, Florida. It's been about two and a half months since she's moved from Tampa to Nashville. And out in Nashville, Tara is just literally trying to get it how she lived. This is a new place for her. She don't have no job. She really don't have no money. She trying to make it do what it do. And in making it do what it do, she got to use what she got to get what she want. And unfortunately, in doing this, she would run across a man named LaRon Williams. And when she met him, the two of them came to a little agreement. And they ended up meeting at the Capitol Park Inn to conduct business. And instead of paying her once they was done, LaRon would end up strangling Tara to death instead. And unfortunately, there's not a lot out there about Tara, her life, how she grew up, what type of person she was, or her background or anything like that. So we really don't know too much about Tara outside of this. And also there's not a lot about the investigation into Tara's murder. But what we do know is that a couple of weeks after she was murdered, LaRon was arrested, and he did end up having Tara's birth certificate on her. Oh, I meant he did have her birth certificate on him. I said that wrong. But anyway, I was kind of confused as to why he would have her birth certificate on him. But then I started thinking, this is 1977, and Tara was new to Nashville, and she was only 19 years old. And so she probably didn't have like a photo ID, a license, or nothing like that. And her birth certificate was potentially her only form of identification. And so he probably took it so that it would be harder to identify her. That's what I think. So LaRon ends up being arrested and taken to jail. And like I said, it's not a lot of information about the investigation. So I don't really know what evidence they had outside of her birth certificate to connect him to Tara's murder. But apparently they had enough evidence to not only arrest him, but also charge him with Tara's murder. And instead of going to trial, in January of 1979, LaRon decided to take a plea deal, and he would plead guilty to Tara's murder in exchange for a 10-year prison sentence with the possibility of parole after 4 years. So he's hauled off to prison, and while he's there, he ends up being enrolled in a work release program. And this particular work release program had him as an electrical apprentice. So he was out there learning how to do electrical shit, right? Now, when I read that he was an electrical apprentice, I was wondering if they had him doing work on residential areas like people's homes and stuff, or if he was doing electrical work on businesses, because his work release started in 1980. He was only just locked up in 1979. So what did he do in a year's time that made him eligible for work release, number one? And number two, if he was working on residential homes, if he was working on people's houses, I wonder if they was telling the people like, yes, this is my electrical apprentice. He's currently serving prison time for a murder that he's only served a year for. Like, this man is fresh into his sentence for committing a murder, and y'all got him up in people's houses and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, him being out on work release really didn't last that long, simply because he would continuously have these violent outbursts. And so he ended up getting kicked out of the work release program. And are we really surprised by this? And so yeah, he was sent back to serve the rest of his sentence within the confines of the jail. So yeah, since he was kicked out of the work release program, he didn't have nothing better to do but to sit in his cell and think about being outside again. And he figured if he couldn't go outside legally again, he would just do it illegally. And so he devised a plan, and on April 22nd, 1981, he escaped. He literally climbed over the fence and dipped. And obviously it's all over the news that an inmate has now escaped a Tennessee prison. And so damn near everybody is on the lookout for him. But somehow he managed to stay low-key for about 2.5 weeks until May 12th of 1981. And this is when a 53-year-old Memphis Police Department lieutenant named Clarence Cox spotted him. And I don't know if I mentioned it or not already, but when LaRon was initially sentenced, he was sentenced to Fort Pillow State Prison. And if I'm not mistaken, it has a different name now. I can't remember what it is, but he ended up being transferred to the Memphis Correctional Center, and this is where he escaped from. So that's why he's in the Memphis area now. Right, so Lieutenant Cox sees him and he like, oh shit, that's the escapee. So he obviously pull up on him like, yeah, it's a wrap, bro. Hands behind your back, you going back to jail. And clearly Lieutenant Cox was way more cautious than that. He was probably very tactical and professional in his approach to LaRon, but just for the sake of what I'm saying, he pulled up on him like, yeah, bro, hop in the car. But either way, LaRon was just not in the mood to go back to prison, and he put up a fight, and LaRon and Lieutenant Cox ended up getting in a scuffle. And unfortunately, LaRon was able to somehow get a hold of Lieutenant Cox's service weapon. And when he did, he shot Lieutenant Cox, killing him instantly. And after doing this, he obviously ran, leaving Lieutenant Cox to be found there one day later. So now LaRon is like, damn, I done escaped prison and I done killed the cop. I gotta get the fuck up out of here. And so later on that night, he called up his girlfriend and asked her for a ride to Jackson, Tennessee. And she does. She drives him from Memphis, Tennessee to Jackson. And once they get there, she rents him a room at the Regency Inn for a week. But she didn't stay there though. She rented the room for him and then she drove back to Memphis that same night. So boom, now LaRon got somewhere to stay, but he still gotta eat. And so he figured his best bet is either to rob somebody or somewhere. And he decides that there's no better place to rob than a church. And on May 14th, 1981, while a priest named Father John J. Jackson is out having dinner with the Timby family, LaRon would end up making his way to St. Mary Catholic Church. And this is where he enters the rectory. And the rectory is essentially Father John's living quarters. And LaRon is in here, but remember, Father John is away having dinner with the Timbys. He not there. And so once LaRon get there, he start ransacking the place. And while this is happening, Father John finishes his dinner with the Timby family and start heading back to the rectory. Now, from the Timby home to St. Mary Catholic Church, where Father John resides, is only a 3-minute walk. So he makes it back to the church pretty quickly. And once he enters the rectory, he sees LaRon tearing his shit up. Straight walked in mid-robbery. And upon seeing this, LaRon panics. And so do Father John. And Father John tries to fight LaRon. But unfortunately, LaRon will get the upper hand. And he will end up shooting Father John twice in the shoulder, one of which was a fatal wound. And instead of just leaving after he killed Father John, he decided that he was going to rob him too. And he went through his pockets and took whatever he could. And the fact that he could rob a priest in a church with God watching, he ain't nothing but the devil. So now the next morning rolls around. It's May 15th now, and Father John is a no-show to morning mass. And this is obviously uncharacteristic of him. And I believe that morning mass was supposed to start at around 8 o'clock. So by 8:20, when he still hadn't showed up, some of his parishioners decided to go to the rectory to see what was keeping him, because like he could be sick or something, right? So they go to the rectory, and this is when they find Father John deceased. And obviously they call the police. And while they start an investigation into Father John's murder, LaRon is out here trying to cover his tracks and get rid of evidence. And he ends up approaching a man named Evan Chapman. And he goes up to Evan and he like, look, I got a 38 revolver I can sell you. And Evan, right away, he got a couple of questions, because where you get this gun and why you selling it, right? So LaRon told him that he got the gun from when he was a security guard in California. And the reason that he's selling it is because he just need the money. And so Evan is like, okay, cool, I'll buy it up off you. How much you looking for? And LaRon was like, I'm looking for like $60, $70. I really don't need that much. I just need a little bit of money right now. And so Evan is like, okay, cool. So this is what we can do. I can give you half of the money now, run a background check on the gun, and then once it come back clean, I'll give you the rest of the money. And LaRon was like, okay, cool, bet. And so LaRon hands over the gun along with 4 rounds of ammunition in exchange for the $35. And he did. So once LaRon leaves, he runs the serial numbers to the gun and waits for the results to come back. And once they do, he learns that this gun is the missing gun of Lieutenant Clarence Cox. And so once he see this, Evan called the police. And he like, yeah, this man just sold me this gun. I gave him $35. I ran the background and they say this is the missing lieutenant's gun from Memphis. Like, I don't want no parts. Hands off. Y'all got it. And so the police is like, okay, cool. Well, can you describe the man to us? Like, who sold you the gun? He like, okay, I don't really know his name, but I can't give you a description. And when he describes the man who sold him the gun, the police is like, damn, that kind of sounds like our escapee. And so in an effort to see if the man who sold Evan the gun is who they think it is, they present a 6-man photo lineup, and Evan picks LaRon right out of the bunch. He said, that's it, that's him, that's the man that sold me this damn gun. And so the police is like, okay, cool, bet. Because before this, they had a suspicion that their escaped convict was the man who had shot Lieutenant Cox, but they wasn't 100% sure. And so now they got a feeling that not only did this man shoot and kill Lieutenant Cox, but he also killed Father John. They just got to prove it. And so they ended up removing a bullet from the wall of the rectory and a bullet from Father John's shoulder. And they sent it off for ballistics testing against the gun that LaRon had sold to Evan. And obviously it came back as a match. So now they know for sure that he killed Lieutenant Cox and Father John. And he's still on the run. So they got to catch this man now. And it just so happened that a couple of days later, on May 17th, 1981, they would get their man, because LaRon would just so happen to be at a coffee shop near the Regency Inn that he was staying in when an officer spotted him. Now, why would you be hanging out at a coffee shop when you on the run from the police, knowing that they be eating donuts and drinking coffee all damn day? I'm sorry to stereotype cops, but you know, that's just what it is. I wouldn't be in no coffee shop if I was on the run from the police, but nonetheless, he was. And they got his ass. So they ended up taking him in for questioning, where he denies both murders, and he also tries to provide an alibi for the time in which Father John was killed. But they didn't necessarily need his alibi, and they damn sure didn't need a confession. They just kind of wanted the confession, but he could keep the alibi, because at this point they had more than enough to not only arrest him but also charged him with both of the murders. Now, they also suspected LaRon of killing at least 2 other women, because these 2 women were killed in a similar fashion as Tara was. However, they only ever ended up charging him with Lieutenant Cox and Father John's murders. And this time he was so confident that he would not be found guilty of either murder that he decided to take it to trial. Unfortunately for him, he was wrong. Wrong as hell, because not only did they convict him of both of the murders, they sentenced him to death for both of the murders. And he initially had 2 execution dates, but they was both pushed back due to appeals. And they never ended up issuing him new dates to be executed, because he was on death row, right? And while he was on death row waiting for his new dates, he kept pissing off the other death row inmates. Ain't no getting out of here. They don't give no fuck. So he pissing him off, pissing him off, and pissing him off. And on July 8th, 1985, they was at their wits' end with this man. And so while they was out on the yard for their little 1 hour a day, they beat LaRon Williams to death with not only their fists, but with exercise equipment. So they essentially carried out his execution for the state. And I just wonder if while he was getting beat up, he kind of wished that he would just have sat down for that 10 years, like never escaped prison. Because mind you, he was only 32 years old when he was sentenced to them 10 years. So at the oldest, he would have been 42 years old when he got released, 36 if he would have got released on parole. But really though, no matter which way it went, whether he escaped or did his time and got out, he would have killed again. So lose-lose either way. But in all actuality, they really should have just never let him take that plea deal for Tara's murder in the first place. They should have sent his ass to the electric chair then. But yeah, y'all, that is all I have for today's case. Let me know what y'all thought about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next one. I don't think she's ready. I don't think you're ready for this jelly. Hold on. Oh, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee. Okay, I just needed to make sure we were supposed to be in Tennessee for real. And like I said, it's not a lot going on. No. Anyways, he didn't last long. No. Anyway, though, his work release, no. And so he was sent back to his cell to send. He was in Nashville and he was in Fort Pillow State University. No, university, girl, that man is in prison. And so later that same night, he called up his girlfriend and asked her for a ride to Jackson, Memphis. No. Because I was about to say Jackson, Mississippi. While 35-year-old Father J, no. While 35-year-old Father J, no. While 35-year-old Father, I keep saying father like it's a dad, and I mean like father like priest. Oh, I can say that. While a 35-year-old priest named Father Joe John Jackson. What? Who? Joe Jackson? No, not Joe Jackson, bitch. And so now